Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for MP Shaun Chen's virtual Black History Month celebration. This year, we mark the 25th year of Black History Month in Canada, following a motion introduced 25 years ago by the Honourable Jean Augustine, the first Black woman elected to the House of Commons to designate February as Black History Month. This month has been a time to celebrate the immense contributions that the Black communities in Canada have made and are making to our country, along with the recognition to their resilience and strength. Let us begin with a trip down memory lane as we look back at some of MP Chen's previous Black History Month events. That was an incredible slideshow showcasing MP Chen's past events for Black History Month when we were still able to gather in person. Now it's my pleasure to introduce your Member of Parliament, who has been working so hard for our Scarborough North community, Mr. Shaun Chen.
Thank you very much, Vanessa, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm so delighted to see all of us here today for this virtual celebration of Black History Month. Let me start off by acknowledging that it has been a truly difficult past year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic has hit racialized communities especially hard, but I know that here in Scarborough North, we have seen such incredible support from community leaders, organizations, and everyday people watching out for each other, helping neighbors, helping friends, helping family. And that is truly what the spirit of Scarborough North is all about. With that said, we are here today to celebrate Black History Month. It is a time for all of us to pay tribute to the incredible contributions that Black Canadians have made to building our country. And as you all know, this past year, we saw communities coming together, rallying against anti-Black systemic racism, doing so in a way that is informed by the realities and experiences that Black communities live through each and every day. We must continue to uplift Black voices, to bring them to the forefront. And that is why I'm looking forward to today's conversation, to the panel that we have assembled with Black leaders from across Scarborough North to talk about, now that we have called out anti-Black systemic racism for what it is, what do we do next? Thankfully, we have some shining examples. And before we get to our panel, we also have a very special guest speaker. So it gives me great pleasure to now introduce our first speaker. And let me share with you that this next speaker is someone that I've had the fortune to know for almost, I would say, 13 or 14 years. Veneise is someone who I had the pleasure of working with when I first got elected as your public school board trustee. And she was involved in a community agency at that time, leading a number of very important and critical programs for youth. She was organizing forums, community walks, and later when she left that work, she began her business. And I remember then connecting back with her because she was involved at the parent council for her child's local school. So it gave me great pleasure to pick up the newspaper recently and to learn that Veneise's company, her product, which I'm going to hold up a jar right here. This is the YAWDI'S jerk marinade. We picked some up this morning from the grocery store. Has been deemed as started in Malvern, made in Ontario, and now found on national grocery store shelves. It is truly a success story. But I often say, as much as we highlight the incredible successes of Black Canadians, we must also acknowledge the struggles and the challenges that Black entrepreneurs face. So it's with great pleasure that I share with you our next speaker. She is the daughter of immigrant parents. They moved to Malvern in 1986. After graduating, Veneise had her degree in sociology. She began working in her community. And as I mentioned to you, she did work as a youth manager, and that was at the Malvern Family Resource Center. She was chair of a parent council at her child's school and a local volunteer on so many different projects. She wanted to spend time with her children, and that is what led her to start YAWDI'S, so that she could provide her own family with delicious, healthy meals. And certainly that intent has now spread, and she's providing those delicious, healthy meals through her products for Canadians across the country. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Veneise George. Veneise, take it away.
Thank you so much, Shaun, for that. As Shaun says, I'm a proud product of our community of Malvern. Liben can attest to my struggles with my business. So can Shaun. So it gives me great pleasure, actually, just to be on this forum, just to be able to connect with you all and just to share a little bit of my journey so far. So as Shaun said, I came here in 1986. I went through the whole realm of Malvern Junior Public School, Dr. Marion Hilliard, Lester B. Pearson, and I worked for Malvern Family Resource Center as the youth development manager there. So I'm just going to begin with a little bit of my entrepreneurship journey. Okay, so literally, like many people, my entrepreneurship journey came out of necessity, right? So I was juggling daily tasks of my employment, raising my kids, activities before school, activities after school. I felt like I literally needed like 36 hours a day just to accomplish everything in my everyday. I wanted to spend more time with my husband and my children and be close to home. So, helping with schoolwork, preparing dinner, without spending a lot of time in the kitchen. So having those thoughts, I started experimenting with marinades that I could use on my meats to help reduce the time that I was spending in the kitchen and just away from those critical hours with my children. So critical hours like 3 to 6 when you have to do homework and you want to be there for them. Thus began my journey with my jerk marinade. So in creating the marinade at home, I literally really liked the way that it made my food taste good, and I could use it on everything. It didn't require me to marinate my meat for a long time. I was you know, like making dinner, and you know, and it wasn't giving me all the time in the kitchen, right? So the whole point was just to try and make it as quick as possible. So literally, how fast forward, you know, I was making it, my family and friends started asking for some. So then they started giving it to friends, and friends gave it to friends. And so literally, I was like literally bringing jars to resource to give to my coworkers, and you know, and that's how it started. So having shared my jars of my marinade with my friends and family, then you know, then they asked like, why don't you sell it? And that's how it all started. So having no business background, not even thinking about wanting to start my own business, right? Like, what did I know about doing a business, right? So I literally had to do a lot of research. You know, it was something that I said, well, why not try it? It was something that I wanted to try, and I was willing to work for it. So I did some research on starting a business, and I found out that Toronto Public Library was offering some sessions on how to start a business. So I enrolled in those night sessions while still working, and while still doing my volunteering. I'm a serial volunteer, as Shaun can tell you, and you know, and working full time and still taking care of my family. So in doing that, in doing the research, you know, I had to keep asking questions, because this is something that I'm not familiar with. I'm familiar with social services, not how to start a business. So once I learned about the requirements of how to get the marinade into the bottles and having to pay for the marinade to get bottled, and you have to pay for labels, and you have to pay for barcodes, you have to pay for nutritional facts tables. You know, it's just a lot of paying for stuff that you don't think about, right? And then, you know, after doing all that, then the next step was, how do you get it in the store shelves, right? So to be quite honest, not many people wanted to help me get it into their stores, because here I was, a Black woman in front of them, trying to convince them to put her jerk sauce, quote unquote jerk sauce, in their stores that I probably made at home, as some of them told me, and you know, and no one's going to buy it in the stores, so it will be a waste of their money to have my product in their store, and it would also be a waste of time. So you know, so they didn't take a chance on me, because I was just, you know, seen as not worth it. So you know, obviously you feel discouraged, and you just like, what is going on? I've paid all this money, I have all this product, and I have nowhere to sell it, right? So just, you know, feeling discouraged and then wanting to give up, because of all the sacrifices that you make. You literally make a lot of financial, emotional, mental sacrifice, right? So you know, you just like, what's going to happen? You can't keep selling it to your family and friends. You want to, you know, you want to sell it out to a broader market, right? So at the urging of her friend, who suggested I tried Rabbini's West Indian store, which is located at the back of Malvern Mall, as you all know, you know, they said, why not try and speak to the owner, see if you can at least start there, right? So with a lot of hesitation and, you know, a lot of reluctance, I did approach the owner, Kula, and then who, to my surprise, he said yes. So that was my first yes. And then, you know, it started from there. But, you know, but then there came a point where the business was not where I wanted it to be. We had hit so many roadblocks along the way. Like, my two main challenges was funding, right? No major banks or government grants was out there. No major banks would fund me, because, you know, it's just me, you know, and frankly, like, I didn't really qualify for any loans or any grants from the government. And then I had no mentors. Like, I had nobody to talk to. Everybody I knew was in social services. Nobody was doing food manufacturing. So it was just like literally me, myself, and I. you know, and then just trying to learn as I go. I made a lot of mistakes. I had no one to educate me, no one to help me get out of those mistakes. So I had to literally learn the hard way, you know, and then just keep going. So I decided I wanted to regroup, refocus, repurpose, and then rebrand myself, and the jerk marinade. So I started researching again, and then trying to figure out what networking things were out there, right? Network events, workshops, anything that had to deal with food. So I signed up for literally everything that had to deal with food, whether it applied to me or not. It didn't matter, because I just wanted to get a better understanding of the food industry, right? So I had to drag my husband, my best friend, you know, to all these things, just because I wanted to learn, and it was important for me to have them learn right along with me. I got my business cards made, you know, so that when I was speaking to anyone, I could collect their business cards and then give them my business cards at the same time, just so I can start building a network of people that I felt, you know, could offer some advice, right? So I eventually started doing some vendor markets just to get out there. I started doing some trade shows, anything that would allow me to sell my product and allow me to have direct contact with customers, just so that you know, for me, I'm a personable person. So I like to talk to people. I like to get reaction right away. So when I do vendor events, at least then I knew if I get it into their mouths, they're going to like it. They're going to love it. They're going to want to buy it. And then they're going to want more. Right. So literally that's what I did. So, you know, not everything's going to go according to plan. So yes, I had people who literally tried it and said it was like too spicy. You know, they didn't want to try it at all. They made their own at home. So, you know, so yours is not going to be better than mine. You know, and what did I know about making jerk, because I didn't look Jamaican. I didn't sound Jamaican. So what do I know about it? Right. And therefore, you know, what I'm offering them couldn't be authentic, just because, you know, because you're not Jamaican. But those, you know, those negative comments, you know, end up being positive as well, because I had people who actually liked it, who loved it. And, you know, they wanted to know, you know, where to buy it, you know, what would happen if they run out, like, you know, how can they reorder? And that's why business cards were important, because every time they, you know, someone purchased, I would give them a business card and say, contact me anytime, you know, let me know, you know, if you want to reorder or anything of that sort. And then that's how, like, literally my following started, just from doing vendor events. So fast forward now, 5 years later, after my first yes at Veneise, and many networking sessions, workshops, vendor events, trade shows, you know, my product line increased to include the pepper jellies and the mustards. And so now, like, literally you can find the products in like the major grocery chains like Sobeys and the Loblaws brand stores. So overcoming the challenges, like, were difficult, but there are a few things that I found very helpful on my journey. So the first thing literally for me was, you know, believe in yourself and your dream. So you have to be your number one supporter, because if you're not taking it seriously, no one else will. And your passion for your business will only come from you. So know your business inside out. Lean on your friends and family who support your dream and that you can rely on to help with your business. They are your best motivators, right? So when I have events, my husband, children, best friend, my mom, everybody that I can grab, you know, come to the events with me, just because, you know, I want them to see what it's like to, you know, to work from the ground up, right? You know, also find a mentor, even if it's virtual, you know, get familiar with network events that are specific to your business and be prepared at these events just by having your business cards. And do not shy away from networking at these events. You know, I have my business cards with me all the time, just so if I meet someone, you know, they always have a way to get in touch with me. Also be passionate about your business. You know, you have to you have to love what you're doing. Otherwise, for you, it will not work if you don't love what you're doing. So your passion will speak for itself. Get creative in terms of finding ways to get funding. As Liben can attest to, I did a lot of catering gigs just so I can get some funding to put towards my business. You know, or whether it's, you know, getting a part-time job or anything of that sort, just so, you know, because to be quite honest, not everyone's going to qualify for loans. Not everybody's going to qualify for grants. But if this is your passion, if this is your business, this is what you want to do, you're going to find a way to make it come to fruition. And then just keep pushing. Like, there'll be good days and bad days, but stay focused on your goal. You know, set some goals for yourself. Like, for example, my main goal this year is like to be more active on social media. I'm not a social media person. So that was my goal this year. So whether it's like me making a conscious effort just to do one post a day, you know, I've attained my goal literally. And then, you know, and just make time to celebrate your wins, which is something really I need to get better at. But, you know, but the wins will come, and then the rewards will be great. And so, and lastly, you know, the only thing worse than starting something and failing is just not starting at all. So thank you. I hope that helps everyone. And if there's any questions or anything, you know, Shaun, you have my contact information, you know, and, you know, reach out to me, because I love speaking to people, as Shaun will know. And just encouraging and just, you know, just continue fulfilling your dreams. It's not an easy road being an entrepreneur, especially being a Black entrepreneur. It's not an easy road. So, you know, if I can be a support system to someone, I'm more than willing to do it.
Thank you so much, Veneise. And I have to say, wow, what a truly inspiring story. And certainly we want you to continue to inspire and continue to grow. It's hard enough to start a small business. Those of you who have tried will know that. And those of you who have successful businesses know that it is difficult to maintain. It is something that requires tremendous effort and tremendous support. But you are your most important champion, and Veneise, you truly have demonstrated your incredible journey with and shared that with all of us. So I want to thank you, Veneise, and I wish you so much success. Veneise talked about the lack of support for entrepreneurs, and I'm so happy because I want to share this with all of you. Our government has just launched a Black Entrepreneurship Fund, and that fund is opening in May 2021 this year. It is a partnership that is in fact between our federal government and the Federation of African Canadian Economics. It's a coalition of Black-led businesses and community organizations from across the country. And this program will provide Black-led businesses with funding of up to $250,000. And this is all part of our government's anti-racism strategy. I don't want to get too much ahead because I know our panel, some of our local organizations, including TAIBU and Tropicana, have been working with our federal government. Since we've taken office in 2015, we have put money into anti-racism, and more specifically, we have put money into anti-Black racism initiatives from coast to coast to coast. So I'm so excited about that. And I'm so excited to let all of you know that YAWDI'S is available. It is in our grocery stores. Locally, you can find it at Rubini's at Galati. But of course, it is in Sobeys and Foodland locations all across the province. And if you haven't tried it, I encourage you to check it out. So thank you very much again, Veneise. It gives me great pleasure now to transition into our panel discussion. And I want to start off by sharing with all of you that when we posted this event through the social media and advertised, I was I felt a bit disheartened by some of the comments that I saw being posted. I felt also very supported. There was a great outpouring of support and people who were looking forward to this event. But there were some that posted comments that said things like, "Why not white history? What about Asians? Uh, why are we focused on only one community? And it really struck me. I was not surprised entirely, but it did remind me of my time at the Toronto District School Board in 2008, when our board was tasked with addressing a 40% dropout rate of Black students across the system. And what was being proposed at that time was the creation of an Afrocentric alternative school. For me, I kept an open mind to the concept. And of course, as an elected trustee, my job is to listen. So I listened, and I heard a debate that lasted for about 3 hours in our boardroom. I saw almost 100 journalists, video cameras lined up, because this had evolved not just as a local school board debate, but into a national conversation on Afrocentricity in education. And while I heard many well-intended comments and speeches from some of my colleagues and some of the deputations, and some of those well-intended speakers talked about Canada being an inclusive, multicultural, diverse society where we ought to celebrate everybody. Some of those people talked about the fact that we had moved past the civil rights era when there was segregation. There were separate schools for Black students, and how we had come to this point where everybody was integrated. But then I heard the stories and the lived realities of Black students and parents in the mainstream school system. And what that taught me was that just because we are integrated, it does not mean that there is actual inclusion. What it told me is that while we aspire to those concepts and ideals of multiculturalism and diversity, there continues to be the privileging of some and the marginalization and racialization of others. And what it told me is that these decisions need to be guided by looking at the lived experiences and realities of Black communities. When a Black mother came and spoke at the board, she talked about the fact that when she walks into a parent council meeting, she is immediately judged. She is immediately judged, and there are assumptions about where she lives, what she does, and how well taken her children are. And Veneise just shared her story, and she said that when she tried to get her product bottled so that it could hit those supermarket shelves, people assumed that this was something that she cooked up in her basement at home. And these are those assumptions that make it so difficult, but these are lived realities that Black and racialized people face each and every day. So it is through that lens that we ought to look at why it is important for all of us to examine the systems and the structures around us. It is so important for all of us to acknowledge and to together tackle anti-Black systemic racism. And that is why today we have 3 Black community leaders. And I know there are so many of you, so we couldn't include everybody on the panel. I know there are so many of you who have logged in and joined this conversation, but we have 3 of them on our panel today. And what we hope to accomplish is to talk about what do we do next? Now that communities around the world, and including here in Canada, have rallied against anti-Black systemic racism, what does it mean to truly build inclusion into all aspects of Canadian society? What does it mean to transform organizations so that they are culturally responsive and that they build in the lived experiences, values, identities, and histories of Black Canadians? What does that look like? I'm very delighted to have today 3 amazing leaders, and I will first introduce them, and we will then proceed with our conversation. So let me pass the mic back to our amazing MC, who will tell you a bit more about the speakers, and then I will come back and introduce our questions. Go ahead, Vanessa.
All right, thank you for those remarks, MP Chen. I would now like to call up our guest speakers to join MP Chen on our panel discussion. Please join me in welcoming Liben Gebremikael, Executive Director of TAIBU Community Health Centre, Raymund Guiste, Executive Director of Tropicana Community Services, and Dr. Errol Lawrence, Lead Pastor at Toronto East Seventh-day Adventist Church. Liben Gebremikael is the Executive Director of TAIBU Community Health Centre. He has over 25 years experience in the primary healthcare sector, social services, mental health, and the community capacity building field. He has worked as a social worker, child and family therapist, project coordinator, and therapeutic group facilitator with various primary care and nonprofit organizations, working with racialized and marginalized populations. Raymund Guiste is the Executive Director of Tropicana Community Health Services, a Black-led multi-service human services charity organization. He leads a team of committed professionals dedicated to changing lives in the community they serve. He holds a Master of Law from York University Osgoode Hall Law School and joined Tropicana after a 25-year career with the Ontario Public Service, where his dispute resolution practice focused on addressing issues of social justice and community and consumer protection. Dr. Errol A. Lawrence is an ordained minister of the Seventh-day Adventist Church with over 40 years of pastoral and administrative experience. Pastor Lawrence completed his Master of Divinity and Doctor of Ministry degrees at Andrews University. He has traveled and preached in Europe, South America, East, West, and Central Africa, and North America. Since January of 2018, he has been the senior pastor of Toronto East Seventh-day Adventist Church. Let's give them all a warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. We'll start with Pastor Lawrence. In the wake of George Floyd's death, you organized a rally here in Scarborough against racial injustice. Please tell us about that event. Why was it important for you and for the community to come together for this particular event?
Thank you, MP Chen. I appreciate the invitation, and thank you for inviting all of us. Welcome to our other guests. I am delighted to be able to share with you, as a Black leader, having lived in various places, one of those being England where I grew up, I saw a lot of racism. I lived in England at a time when they had what was called the sus law. It's compared to what we may call carding here. Black young people were being arrested for no reason whatsoever. I can give you many examples of that. But over the years, as I've lived in Canada, I've seen similar things happen. And I've always been one who believes that we should, as a church, speak up. Because you often heard the saying, silence is violence. And we believe that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So when I witnessed what I call the murder in plain sight of George Floyd, I thought this has to be something that every human being with a conscience speaks up about. And so I took it to a group of our leaders. I was at the time the coordinator for the group for our churches in the what we call the Metro East area, including Scarborough and a bit of Ajax and a little bit of Toronto area. And so we decided, let's do something. So we called together the pastors. There are about 16 of us, and we worked on having a march against racism. And we invited you, and I'm so glad you came. And what we did then is arranging things with the police, and so everything was fine. We worked out everything, and we marched. And it was something that other people could get a chance to see that churches are caring, because we also sent out word to some of the folks of the interfaith group in Scarborough. Unfortunately, the leader at the time was having some family challenges, and it was just the beginning of COVID and so on, and he couldn't join us. We had two people who joined, and we did it was fantastic. We just appreciated the people who along the road were cheering us along and supporting what we were doing. We appreciated that, because as I've looked through the John Howard Society, of Canada, it tells us that the data shows that Indigenous people and Black people are subjects of unfair treatment throughout the criminal justice system. And when we look at what's happening to Aboriginals, to Blacks, and so forth, we have to do something. Now, you mentioned earlier that somebody might say, well, why not have White History Month, or why not do this for the other? But just look at it this way. If I have COVID-19 and somebody else has cancer and somebody else has diabetes, when I go to the hospital, I'm concerned about the others, but my treatment is what I'm really concerned about right now for COVID-19 or if whatever I have. So we're dealing with something that needs to be dealt with at that time. And Black racism throughout the centuries here in Canada has been a problem. And I think it's even more covert than we think it is. And we need to just deal with it. And I believe that the church right now has to stand up and speak up based on what we believe in what the Bible teaches. Because the Bible teaches us, I've shown you, O man, what is just, what the Lord requires of you, but to act justly, to have mercy, and to do right in God's sight. And I've always cherished that text over the years. I remember the former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, using that in his inauguration speech. And I believe every Christian should have that, because that's what Jesus would have us do.
Pastor Lawrence, thank you so much. And you talked about us doing something about it. I want to take that as a lead into the next panelist I'd like to call up and comment, Liben Gebremikael. Liben, you have been at the forefront of transforming healthcare for Black communities. I remember the first time we met, it was also about 13 years ago. We met with, in fact, Dr. Chris Morgan of the Black Health Alliance, and the project was TAIBU. So TAIBU is now born. It is in our Malvern community, and it's not only serving the local health needs of Scarborough and the GTA, it in fact is the only community health center in the province that has a special focus on the health needs of the Black community. So you have certainly developed a model that can be taken across the country and across the world of Black-led, Black-focused healthcare that leads to the improved health outcomes of the Black community. Tell us why this is important, and tell us your journey in creating that systemic change.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Honorable Shaun Chen. Thank you for the guest speakers as well. But I would like to say special thank you, and I haven't seen her in a long time. Veneise, we used to make fun with her sauce, and saying that like one day it should end up in a grocery store, and I don't know, maybe 3-4 years now, and it's there. So I'm very, very happy that she's here to share her story, and she makes us all proud. I know, she, in her story, she said how difficult it is, and I know it has not been easy, but it's an encouragement and an inspiration for all of us. And I'm going to tell her, she used to do this before too. She needs to go to schools and share her stories to encourage and motivate our young people. So go back to your old position of youth manager or whatever you used to do. But it's so great to see her. She, one thing that would work as well, Veneise, is your smile. So we should all acknowledge that. But coming to your question, Shaun, thank you for that opportunity. And I know, it's the issue that the Black community has been facing for generations, is very systemic. And I think when the Black Health Alliance thought of creating a space of really bringing about change in how our communities are accessing services, but also how services are providing, agencies are providing service to the communities, I think that was the great vision of Dr. Morgan and the Black Health Alliance. And as you said, it's been 13 years since we've been on the ground, and we are trying as much as we can. I think we're doing some progress, but one of the things that really is making some really headway and the success of how we do things is that we have the engagement and the support of the community, whether it is the young people that we work with, the adults, or the seniors. And when it comes to around equity issues, you cannot do the work without the involvement and leadership and engagement of the community. And I think that's where we have been really focusing our attention to make sure that communities are participating in decision making and how services are being designed for them, how they are receiving it, and how they would like to participate in that. So that has been a significant progress that we have made. It's not always easy. There are some barriers that exist. We know since the painful experience of George Floyd last year, there has been some opportunities that are presenting themselves, and I think we need to strike when the iron is hot, because attention is being given to the issue of anti-Black racism. Government, corporations, individuals, service providers, professionals, they're all at least willing to listen and to learn. And that is also another opportunity we are exploring when we are engaging with communities to say, how can we help you to change? The change is not happening, should not be focused on how our youth should change. The change should happen somewhere else. And so we are knocking on systems and institutions and service providers to say, if you can change our situation or our community situations, will change. And so that is the kind of work that we've been trying to do. We have started a program, or our programs are now focused around systems change. We've done a lot of programs just focusing on the youth or the seniors, but if nothing changes, you know the story very well. We can work with students and create after-school programs and support for the students. But if the system in the education does not change, we will always be providing a program, but nothing is going to change in the education system. So we have developed some very good relationship with TDSP, now with Catholic School Board, to try to see what can we change in the system to make the experience of learning for the Black students better, so that they don't drop off from school, or they're not disproportionately impacted by expulsion and suspension. Or even now with COVID, we are concerned that the access to not just the digital equity, but also to appropriate academic support is a gap that we are identifying. And when we're thinking about recovery, that's also an area where we have to focus in making sure that the Black students who are already behind when they were going to school are not further left behind because of this COVID experience. So that is the focus. We look at gaps and how we can intervene within those gaps, but not working by ourselves and the clients, but also the systems, whether it's the healthcare system, the education system, the employment system, all that are impacting our communities.
Thank you so much, Liben. And I really like how you framed that in saying that programs can only address a gap, but it's transforming the systems and eventually not needing these programs that are there, which are temporary. Sometimes the funding is there and it's not. It's so important that systemic change happens. And that leads me to my next guest here, Raymund. Now, Raymund is the executive director of Tropicana, and Tropicana needs no introduction because they've just celebrated their 40th anniversary last year, and they have pioneered culturally relevant programs for Caribbean and Black communities in Scarborough over those decades. I can personally attest to being a Tropicana kid because this is a while ago, but in 1998 I was in high school and I was involved in the Scarborough Youth Council. The Scarborough Youth Council was a program of the Scarborough Youth Resource Centre that was funded and run through Tropicana Services. So I myself have seen firsthand the importance of the work that they do to create those safe spaces for young people to get involved, get engaged, and to support them. But their work goes beyond that. So I am very delighted to call Raymund up. And Raymund, now that you've been pioneering that culturally relevant programming for over 40 years. Tell us about Tropicana's goals and priorities moving forward. And also, I'd like you to talk about the most recent initiative, because Tropicana has in fact partnered with the federal government through our Supporting Black Canadian Communities initiative. And this is $25 million that we announced, in fact, in 2019 over 5 years to support organizations on the ground to develop their capacity to support their needs in providing service to Black communities. Raymond, please, the floor is yours. Sorry, Raymond, we're having difficulty hearing you. If you can try again. I see that you are unmuted though, so if you can try again and see if your microphone is connected.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great, great. No, well, thank you. Thank you, MP Chen. It's a pleasure to be here in February, Black History Month. So happy Black History Month. And on behalf of Tropicana's board of directors, the leadership team and staff at Tropicana, I just want to extend greetings to you and my fellow panelists and everyone who has joined us here today. In terms of Tropicana's goals and objectives going forward, we're presently in the last year of our current 5-year strategic plan. And so as we move forward into developing our next 5-year plan, what we found is that the pillars of our existing plan are still very relevant. And so in terms of agency self-sufficiency, collaboration and partnership, and innovative programming, these are the 3 pillars of our strategic plan going forward. And you mentioned the Supporting Black Communities initiative, and that touches connects very closely with our second pillar, which is collaboration and partnership. And so a lot of the work in the last year that's been done to bring the Supporting Black Canadian Communities initiative to fruition has been developing partnerships across the country with other organizations across the country. And so that, and just a few days ago, we had a press conference where we announced the flowing of funding to 87 Black organizations across the country. We have opened and closed our first call for proposals to float capacity building funds to organizations, to Black-led, Black-serving organizations across the country. And so we're very proud of the work that's been done there. We've been able to do it inside of around 6 months or so. And so we're very, very pleased to see that work going forward. The impact of that work is going to be touching Black lives by strengthening the organizations that touch those lives. And so we are literally making Black history today. Black history is happening now through this historic initiative and the flowing of funding to Black community through Black organizations. And so our goals going forward is to simply increase our reach, increase our impact on a national scale. And this initiative gives us the opportunity to do just that. And so thank you for inviting us here today, Shaun. You're never shy about talking about your own personal connection with Tropicana and the way that it has impacted your own life. And so again, it's a pleasure to be here on this panel today.
Thank you so much, Raymond. And Raymond has an incredible team of people at Tropicana that has been so dedicated, and as Liben does at TAIBU, and it's so wonderful to see so many come together, especially on the front lines. We have so many Black community members working in healthcare, in services and programs on the front lines throughout this pandemic. So I do want to say a big thank you to all of the Black frontline and essential workers that have been making a difference each and every day. I'd like to go to closing remarks, and I wish we had more time today, but I'd like to go to closing remarks, and I'll start with Pastor Lawrence.
Thank you, MP Chen. I appreciate that. In closing, I just want to thank you for having us. That's good. I would like to see out of a meeting like this that businesses and so forth could involve church leadership, church, more than we do. I believe that we have a lot of people that come to church now on Zoom or Facebook Live, or whatever it is. We have a lot of people who meet week after week, Sunday or Saturday, whatever day it is. And we have people who can contribute. So we'd like to see how we could get our feet around the table and have some of these discussions. I think right now we are seeing where a lot of focus is being put on Black initiatives. And I think this should continue. I believe that we can do a lot more than we have done. And we're at a time now when we see the need, because a lot of things are coming to the fore. And as we see them, we need to deal with them. Now is the time to act. I'm very concerned about our Black youth. I'm concerned about the education programs, and I'm concerned about the fact that some of our parents, the youth's parents, are not up to par with things that are happening. And I think we need to help to educate them as well. So there's a lot to be done. And I think if we can work together as faith groups with businesses, we can get a lot done, because we have a lot of influential thought leaders among our congregations who could be involved with the things that are happening. So I really appreciate the fact that we could be here together like this. And I look forward to other times like these.
Thank you so much, Pastor Lawrence. And I think, Pastor Lawrence, you've hit on a key point, and we should all endeavor to continue to work together with our faith groups, no matter what they are, because they are so important in our communities to bringing people together, and certainly can be a huge part of that systemic change that we are all striving and hoping to achieve. Thank you so much, Pastor Lawrence. And next, I will go to Liben.
Thank you again for this opportunity. As usually do, Shaun Chen, if you can connect me to Pastor Errol, really, we can start this faith-based organization partnership. We have a lot of work to do together. That's another system that has been left aside in a lot of opportunities. Churches, mosques, temples play a significant role in communities' lives, and they are not considered as part of this ecosystem. And so I'll be very happy to continue the conversation, Pastor, whenever that is possible. I think this is what we do as communities, is always think about what we do. So in terms of in closing, I would really want to say a couple of messages. The first message would be to the government, Shaun, to you, and to say thank you very much for the commitment that the government has shown over the past few years around addressing anti-Black racism, supporting initiatives for Black communities. As somebody commented on the chat, it's great that it has started. It's not enough, and it has to be sustained. As you have said so many times, the issues that we face are very systemic. They are generational, and periodic investment in programs and initiatives is going to be helpful for the short term, but we need a strategy and a long-term investment in our communities, particularly in our youth and our seniors, the most impacted, and we've seen it with COVID as well. I think I would also like to say to people who are participating today, to acknowledge that it has not been an easy year. Pastor Errol was sharing the murder that we saw, in plain daylight, that has traumatized a lot of people, a lot of young people who have been traumatized by that event. And so it has been difficult. And then we've added COVID on top of it. That has really impacted our communities, 3 to 4 times more than other communities. The Black community has been impacted. So I want to acknowledge the challenges that we're going through, and to say that at TAIBU, we're trying our best to also support people during this COVID pandemic. We have a helpline, we have support services that we can provide, and if we can't, we will refer you to other places. But please let us know how best we can support. So that's the message I have. And then for the Raymonds and the Libens, as service providing agencies. It's great. We work together, especially in Malvern. We have a very good connection of working together, and we'll continue to do that. And this is the pledge from TAIBU and the board, that we continue to really address this issue of systemic anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism. We also have our Indigenous programs, and also supporting the Francophone communities in Scarborough. So we will continue to do that. The time is right. There is opportunities for change. We won't eliminate everything that exists, but if we are able to move the needle a little bit, to the other side, I think we would have achieved a lot. So thank you for this opportunity to mark and celebrate Black History Month, but also come as a community to say we will continue to push forward.
Thank you, Liben. And Liben is also part, if I may share with everybody, Liben, TAIBU is one of the members of the Foundation for Black Canadians. It is a new organization that has been formed with the goal of setting up the first ever Black-focused foundation in Canada to support the community. So that was a fascinating project that I just learned about the other week when Liben and the members of the group came to meet with me virtually, of course, on Zoom, but there's a lot going on, and I love the approach. I feel that, as Liben said and pointed out, government funding needs to be sustained. It needs to continue, and we all know that the unfortunate part is that governments can change. So commitments can be made, but when governments change, there is always a different agenda that is put on the table. But with that said, I have seen how at this moment we have such a unison of community, of public, and of government coming together at this very critical point to advance and move forward on these issues. And I hear very clearly, I see some comments in the chat room. There's a comment on the need for sustainable funding. Absolutely. That comment is from Dr. Jacobet, who is a friend and someone who works with who founded the Uzima Women Relief Group. And throughout the years, we've connected and been able to support them through a number of funding programs as well. And also my good friend Julie Spence, the founder and president of, or past president, I should say, of the Spelling Bee of Canada. Julie, thank you for being here. And her program is one of those very important programs that that we can engage more parents and families with. So finally, I'd like to go to Raymond. You have the final word of our three panelists today. Raymond.
Thank you, Shaun. I have your words at the top of the call ringing in my ears about some of the comments that came to you about hosting a Black History Month event, and the idea that somehow you, perhaps because you're Asian, that can't celebrate Black History Month, or that others shouldn't, or why the focus, when in fact, Black history is intertwined with all of our history, everyone's history. Anyone who has had, every time a person of any background goes through safely through an intersection, it's because a Black person invented the traffic light. In fact, the cars that they're driving because it was a Black person who invented the technology that could lubricate combustion engines while they're in motion. So that just makes me think of the importance around allyship, the importance around building bridges, the importance of moving forward courageously in solidarity, not just within the Black community, because the struggle to advance the Black cause has always been, the quantum leaps we've made has always been made in allyship with others. And so I guess the encouragement that I'd want to leave us all with is that if we will be humble enough, all of us, from whatever community, if we can, act with humility, vulnerability, and courageousness to reach out across the aisle, so to speak, to find those opportunities for partnership, allyship, to build trust, we will all be able to get there together, because the effort to make Black lives better makes all lives better. And so I think that that if any final message we can leave to resonate, that would be it. It's about all of our communities pulling together, part of the mosaic, and making all of our lives better through that effort, solidarity, and collaboration.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Raymond. You mentioned the importance of acknowledging that Black history is a part of our everyday history as Canadians. In our past Black History Month events, we've had a gentleman by the name of Francis Jeffers, and I encourage all of you to check it out. His website is multiculturalmuseums.org, and he has a traveling Black inventors museum, but he also does this for a number of different communities. And when you see this wonderful presentation, you realize that so much of the things around us have been invented by Black members of the community, and we don't often enough acknowledge their contributions. And so I want to say thank you for pointing that out. Veneise, you have the final word, and I will pass it to Veneise. I see her hand up. Veneise, go ahead.
Thanks, Sean. I just wanted to do like a quote from our famous Bob Marley, right? So where he says, "Until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, there will be no change," right? So as Liben says, tackling systemic and systems and institutions, that's when and that's where we will make the change. Because without that, nothing will happen, right? So we will just continue to provide Band-Aid solutions and it will not work. So as Liben said, we have to get into the systems and the institutions and then deal with it from there. That's it.
Thank you so much, Veneise. I don't think I could have said that better. And I hope that we can all continue to challenge those systems to create inclusive spaces. And as Raymond just mentioned, the importance of building allies. When you look throughout history, you see that nobody is safe from hatred and discrimination. In different contexts, at different points in history, we have different groups that have suffered because of hatred. And so when we don't work together, when we don't stand together as one community rejecting anti-Black systemic racism and any form of discrimination and hatred, the question always is, who's next? Because hatred has no boundaries. It jumps from one place to another and only leaves behind destruction. So I thank you for welcoming me to have this Black History Month event with all of you. And I look forward to that systemic change that Veneise just so eloquently put on the table, that we all need to come together and find and support. So thank you all for being here today. I cannot close without saying a few thank yous. First and foremost to Veneise George for creating YAWDI'S and for telling your incredible story with all of us. I wish you much continued success on behalf of the community, and we know that you will continue to shine. And to our panelists, Raymond, Liben, Pastor Errol, thank you so much for your insights, and most importantly for the work that you do each and every day, whether it is through our faith communities or through multi-service agencies providing frontline and essential services in healthcare, education, childcare, settlement. Thank you for everything that you are doing, because you truly are living and breathing what systemic change means each and every day. I could not have done this event without the incredible support of my staff. And of course, they're not in front of the camera, but they're behind it, making sure that the live Facebook is working, that the Zoom meeting is working, that the slideshow and the agenda is organized. So I do want to say thank you to Winnie Trong, to Kiki Sakota, and to Valerie Pang. They are some of my constituency staff, and they are working today on making this event possible. And last but not least, I do want to say a big thank you to our MC, Vanessa Kerr. Vanessa is a graduate of TDSB, and in fact, I've known her since she was in middle school. Her mom, Sharon Kerr, was a representative of the parents on our Central Parent Involvement Advisory Committee at the Toronto District School Board, and that is how I got to know the Kerr family very well. So thank you so much to Sharon, and to, of course, our amazing MC, Vanessa, her daughter, for hosting and leading us through this event today. Vanessa is a very proud graduate of Queen's University now. So now you know how it was a long time ago when I was her school trustee in middle school, but she's graduated and has a degree in sociology. Congratulations, Vanessa, and keep up the great work. So with that, I will say to all of you, thank you for being here. Thank you for celebrating virtually our Black History Month celebration. And you will see here the poster for this year's Black History Month, The Future is Now. And I look forward to building that future with all of you. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.